Only I play my game the right way. Okay. And it doesn't matter who you are. That's basically what you're saying. And it's, it's snowball tossing at the most immature level, but that's basically what we do. And I do it too, right? I mean, I'm not innocent. I have plenty of times, gone off on long-winded rigmarole, but basically what I'm saying, I think you should play this game this way. So the wussification of Dungeons and Dragons, or from what I can peel away from this ridiculous topic, is apparently if you play D&D at some point in time, D&D became wussy or you became wussy, which is just sort of weird, because wasn't the whole thing originally about us old school players like myself? Is we were wusses, we were geeks, we were losers, we were playing OD&D and D&D and AD&D, and we were the wusses. So that means that by your logic, if then everybody who's after this time isn't wusses, the 5e players are manly men? Or are you saying that if we played D&D before this mystical time point, we were manly men, and anybody who played at D&D after this mystical non-existent time point is wusses? Or just that the rules became wussy, or the thought pattern mentality about the game became wussy? Okay, so basically what you're saying, again, is if you don't play my game my way, you're a wuss. So first off, again, it seems to be somewhere around Advanced Dungeons and Dragons 2nd edition seems to be the mystical point on this non-existent timeline where the hobby suddenly became wussy. And notice they're only saying D&D. Other games, oh no, those are fine. But at some point in time, D&D became wussified. So before we get into this, let's just clarify some things yet again for those of you who do not understand this. Hasbro owns Wizards of the Coast. Wizards of the Coast does not own Hasbro. Hasbro owns Dungeons and Dragons and has for a very long time. Wizards of the Coast no longer owns Dungeons and Dragons. Wizards of the Coast just publishes Dungeons and Dragons for Hasbro. Hasbro does not need Wizards of the Coast to make Dungeons and Dragons. Wizards of the Coast could cease to exist tomorrow. Dungeons and Dragons will still exist because Hasbro owns everything that is any way, shape, or form even slightly attached to D&D. Dungeons and Dragons, the lunchbox, is Hasbro. Okay. 2, the rules for Dungeons and Dragons have not really changed. Okay? From day one till today, the basic rule is still roll dice, stuff happens. Right? Doesn't matter whether it's 5th edition or original 0 edition. The game is basically a bunch of idiots in a place doing stuff, and when stuff happens, you roll dice. So, yeah. Now, if what you're really saying is the political leanings of Wizards of the Coast have changed to embrace the current media, then yes, it's absolutely. The politics of Wizards of the Coast has changed, but the rules haven't really changed. They're still pretty much the same. Armor class, level, hit point. Everything else, that's House of Fighter, Magic User, Thief, that hasn't changed. Going in a dungeon, fighting monsters, leaving with stuff, that hasn't changed. People's perception might have changed. The way people play it might have changed. But 1st edition, 2nd edition, 3rd edition, we don't really count 4th. 5th edition, still basically the same game. Even 4th edition is still basically the same game, played basically the same way by basically the same people. But apparently, at some point in time, D&D became wuss. And again, that time seems to be around Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. So if you played D&D before Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, you weren't a wuss. Or if you played D&D after Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, you are a wuss. Or I don't really understand. So let me just introduce you to some of the people I have played Advanced Dungeons and Dragons with, and every version of Dungeons and Dragons with. So first off, let me introduce you to my very good friend, TJ Storm, World Martial Arts Hall of Fame member TJ Storm, the man who mocaps Godzilla in all the Godzilla movies. He was also Colossus and in several other movies. One of the hardcore badasses I've known in my entire life. I dare you to call this man a wuss. But he played AD&D 2nd edition, he played 3rd edition, and he played 4th edition, and I know he plays 5th edition. So, yeah, this guy's a wuss? No, okay. Let me introduce you to another individual, not a friend of mine, but I know he plays D&D and has played D&D for a long time. Joe Mangielio. This guy's a huge AD&D Dragonlance nerds, single-handedly bringing Dragonlance back to the public domain. This guy has played D&D, AD&D. I know TJ's played with him. DJ says I played with him. I don't remember it, but apparently we've played D&D together. So yeah, this guy, all right, yeah. Apparently AD&D 2nd edition on Wussification. This guy is a wuss. But because I played 0th edition D&D, I'm not a wuss. Well, all those people who beat me up all those years calling me a wuss, well, it turns out you're wrong. Let me introduce you to another individual who I know has played Dungeons & Dragons AD&D going further. Oh, yeah. WWE Hall of Famer Paul White, The Big Show. This guy plays D&D. He's played 1st edition, 2nd edition, 3rd edition, 4th edition, 5th edition, 2nd edition AD&D. So he's a wuss. I could go on. And just so you don't think, it's just men who played D&D and who I played D&D with and who played Advanced Dungeons & Dragons 2nd edition. Here's World Martial Arts Hall of Fame member Cynthia Rothrock, who I've met and played D&D with. But she played 2nd edition AD&D. She played 3rd edition AD&D. I assume she played 4th and 5th because she hung out with TJ for a long time. So yeah. So if your determination, your Mason-Dixon line is AD&D 2nd edition forward is wussified, then all those individuals are wusses, and I'm not. But I play every edition of D&D, and I proudly have loved every edition of D&D. I even play 5th edition because I like the 5th edition engine. So the problem is you have forgotten how to differentiate between the politics of the company producing the product and the product. So therefore, you're going around making all these videos going, the wussification of D&D. When did D&D become wussified? D&D is not wussified. The politics of the company that is making D&D might be considered woke or inappropriate or stupid by some. Others might be perfectly fine with that. And I'm sure the 5e fans who can kick my ass would be very offended if you called them wusses. But I love the fact that you now think that I'm hardcore badass because I played Dungeons & Dragons before Advanced Dungeons & Dragons 2nd edition. Because I've played D&D since day one. So does that make me a badass? Should I be wearing a leather jacket and sunglasses and going, if you want to live, come with me, or shit like that? It's not the players who are wusses, it's the game. You can play any edition in a wussy way, or you can play it not wussy. It's up to you, include and leave out. Yes, exactly. It is up to the players and the DM to decide how they play D&D. Can you play hardcore, bloody, balls to the walls 5e with a few minor modifications? Sure. Can you play comfy, safe, we do nothing wrong with 1st edition AD&D or 2nd edition AD&D? Of course you can. The rules don't change. There's nothing wussy about the implicitness of the rules. It is the politics of each individual. So again, your logic of this is silly. It's flawed. It's making mountains out of molehills because for some reason you want to be like, oh, AD&D is my game, so I played it, and anybody who doesn't play it my way is a wuss. Or I don't agree with the current politics of Wizards of the Coast, therefore D&D has become wussified, and anybody who plays it is a wuss. Well, I mean, I've met TJ Storm. I spent major part of my life with TJ Storm. I don't think he's a wuss. I've met Cynthia Rothrock, and I don't think she's a wuss, and I would never call her one. Well, I've never met Paul White. I don't think I'd call Paul White a wuss. And definitely Joe Mangiolia. I mean, that guy, it's wuss. No, the wussification of AD&D. AD&D is my game. AD&D second edition is my game. And if you played it after second edition, you're a wuss. The only way to play it is this version. And if you don't play that version, you're a wuss. No, it's fine. You don't agree with the politics of Wizards of the Coast. There's nobody who is more condemning of Wizards of the Coast than I am. But I will also condemn the so-called old school, which I'm supposedly a member of, when they say stupid things like this or other stupid hypocritical things. Okay. D&D is not a wuss. There is no wussification of D&D. The politics of the world has changed. And maybe you don't like the direction the politics of the world have changed. Okay. Oh, there's safety tools in D&D now. And I can't accept that my game, the way I play it, has changed. Again, yes, I've played many editions of D&D, not 4th. I liked 4th. I guess I'm alone in liking 4th. I thought 4th was a great edition of D&D. I loved the mechanics of 4th. I understood the mechanics of 4th, which is rare for my fucked up brain. I love the movement rules. I love the shifting rules. I love the at will, encounter daily rules. So yeah, it wasn't D&D. It was Eberron the role-playing game, which is what it always should have been. But that's the topic for a different video, which we can do if you want. Calling people names over a game seems excessive no matter what you might think about their gameplay. Again, yes. Well, why are you calling them wusses? Because they enjoy a game a different way than you do. Okay, people are people, no matter what you see. So what is the difference between you and me? Ebony and Ivory living together in harmony. You don't like the politics of 5e players? Don't play D&D with them. You don't like the politics of Wizards of the Coast? Don't support Wizards of the Coast. You don't like the politics of old school players? Don't watch our videos. You don't like the politics of old school players? Don't play D&D with them. It's a fucking game. Grow the fuck up. It's 22 pages of abstract rules that were written 50 years ago that have been modified every few years, but are still the basically abstract rules that make no fucking sense then, and they still make no fucking sense now. Bows are a dexterity weapon. Have you ever tried pulling a longbow? I assure you it has nothing to do with your dexterity. Swords are a strength weapon. Have you ever swung a sword? Nope. It's both strength and dexterity. If you wear armor, you're harder to hit. No, if you wear armor, you're easier to hit. The armor just absorbs damage. I can slice somebody's neck in D&D with a dagger, and they'll survive. If I slice your neck in real life with a dagger, you're dead. You're bleeding out. So again, because I don't want to get too long on this, because I could talk about this for hours. Somewhere, a group of individuals decided that there is this Mason-Dixon line that separates the old school from the Zoomer school and the new school. Basically, TSR D&D, and then early Wizards of the Coast D&D, and then current Wizards of the Coast D&D. Right? I guess those are the 3 schools, and even the people in the TSR D&D argue over which version of the many incarnations of TSR D&D is the best version. And look at the Bro Asar and these other guys, and if you don't play that version, well, you're somehow a lesser person. So at some point in this non-existent timeline, there's this Mason-Dixon line, and now we've added to the Mason-Dixon line that at some point in time, D&D became wussified. Even though D&D hasn't changed. The politics of the company who is responsible for the publication is changed and will change again and has changed before because Hasbro is in the business of making money. And right now, they have seen that the way that they addressed people going between 2014 and now isn't working. So now they're changing the politics and they're saying, okay, Wizards of the Coast, you did it your way for 10 years. Look where we stand. We're giving you another 5 years to change. And if you don't, well, in 2027, we might decide we don't need you because we're losing money. Because you know how much stock Hasbro stock is worth right now? $65 a share and dropping. That is ridiculous. So I played D&D in 1976. I'm hardcore. I played D&D in the 80s. I'm hardcore. I played AD&D. I'm medium core. I played 3rd edition. I'm soft core. I played 3.5. I'm Jello core. I played 4th edition. I'm just kind of there. I played 5th edition. Oh, well, you're a wuss. You're a wuss. The wussification of D&D began here, and everybody who played my game a different way than I played it after this way, or anybody who doesn't think the way I think about the politics of the world, well, you're a wuss. You're a wuss. The D&D rules are wussified. Death saves and blah, 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 blah. Friends, in closing, let us paraphrase the words of Gary Gygax, who said, to paraphrase, it's a fucking game, get over it. So I'm sure I'm going to get some slack about this, but I do not agree that there is an imaginary line that where somehow D&D became wussified. D&D hasn't changed. There's a few minor tweaks to the rules, but it's still the basic nonsensical rules that it was 50 years ago. Roll dice, shit happens. Right? In some ways, the rules make more sense. In other ways, the rules make less sense. At the end of the day, it's still the game. It is the comfy middle of role-playing. It's not the best game. It's not the worst game. It's not, but it's the most influential game. It's the most well-known game, but it's still a game. The game is not wussified. You might find certain people who play it today wussified, but I seem to remember the same people who are saying, oh, the people who play D&D today are wusses, are the people like me who are getting beat up in high school and being called wusses, and I fucking dare you to tell Paul White he's a wuss. Now, I know people are going to react to this and say, I don't know what I'm talking about, and I'm an idiot, and I'm sure Condor will make a video about it, claiming I stole his idea, and I'm sure Shoner will make a video about it, calling me an idiot, and probably even Garaby will make a video about it, because I know he's still farming my content, and you know what? Fine. I play 5e. I enjoy playing 5e. That makes me a wuss. I don't agree with most of the politics of Wizards of the Coast. I guess that makes me old school. I don't think at any point in time I became more or less of a wuss for each edition I played, so I don't know what that makes me. I'm not old school because I disagree with a lot of shit that comes out of their mouth. I'm not millennium school because I disagree with a lot of shit that comes out of their mouth. And I'm not new school because I definitely disagree with a lot of the shit that comes out of their mouth. And then throughout all this, there's the actual real people who play D&D 5th edition who are just like, none of you know what you're talking about. At no point in time did we ever say this. You ever actually met an actual 5e player like Edward Nuki? No, none of this shit. I'm the OGGM. If you appreciate this editorial, let me know. If you think I should shut the fuck up, let me know. If I've offended you, good, because, controversy equals cash. So please feel free to respond because the algorithm loves it. And while you're responding, take a moment to subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. Help me reach that mystical 2,000 subs mark by the end of the year. And have a great day. Now, let the countdown begin until people start making videos about how stupid I was making this video.